about what we're going to do. This is October, what is it, the 12th of 2015, and this is working through the second part of the engineering design phase, which is specifications. We're also going to look at assessments and how assessments are done formatively and summatively through the EPICS design process. So we're going to get started. As we get into this, Norm, again, just continue to ask questions and go from there, because what it will do is we're going to kind of walk through this specification phase and show some of the resources that are available to help you get everything kind of together for your students. And always know that we can be reached on web or via email. So anything that we can do to help you, we're right here. So between Sharice and I and you've got Marilyn and also Kenyatta down there in Broward County, I think that we'll be able to do some nice things, or you'll be able to do some nice things. Okay, so this is the second session, and we're looking at the specification phase, and you can see that, I think. And
yes.
Good, great. So the second phase of this is the specifications, where we have, if you remember right, when we were talking about the project identification, we were figuring out what needs to be done, what is the best use of time, what is the best use of resources to serve the community. So the students have gone through looking at their community, their demographics, whatever their community is, whether it's within the school or it's in the neighborhood or whether it's in the city. They've gone through that process and they've figured out, okay, these are the needs that we see that we could feasibly do. So that's what they're working on now, is trying to figure it and break it down into smaller parts. It's not about how they're going to get it done, it's what they have identified as a problem. So breaking it down. In this phase, they're going to, again, look at what is the best use of time to develop their service learning project. And Norm, I'm going to ask you again, if you remember with service learning, how does that differ from volunteerism?
Service learning, that's when you partner up with people in your community and you go after projects that will benefit them, and at the same time there'll be authentic learning experiences.
Okay. And so the students, what do the students get out of it? What do your students get out of it?
Well, they'll certainly have a project that's going to contribute to the community, help people, and at the same time they can be satisfied that they've made a real life contribution. It's authentic and it benefits people.
Okay, so that's exactly what it is, and also the students would also be developing skills such as critical thinking, problem solving, probably math
Yes.
skills, along with the English language arts and speaking and listening, to be able to really be able to pull this together. So in this phase, they're also looking at, they've kind of identified what kind of a project they have, and they're also looking at what all is already out there. Why would, say, if they were doing a backpack, why wouldn't they use a backpack that is already on the market? So they're looking at prior art, they're looking at state-of-the-art to determine what, why aren't they using that, and how can they develop a project or a product that could meet those needs. So they're going to be exploring a little bit more of that. They're also looking at whatever they're deciding needs to be done, whether it's a backpack or whether it's a whatever project or product there is, whether it be a sprinkler system or a cistern or something. Why? How can those pieces of that, how can they be measured? So trying to figure out how to measure how well this meets the needs, and developing the products as they go about this. And then also their Gantt and PERT charts. Now, last week we talked a little bit about PERT charts, and do you remember that, Norm? Was it last week? Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, last week.
Week before, because of
Week before.
reviews.
Yeah, we had design reviews. We couldn't use this. So,
Yeah.
do you remember the PERT chart?
Oh yeah, I've used both PERT charts and Gantt charts quite extensively. A lot through a Microsoft project, but PERT charts, they give you the main steps, the phases in the projects. It helps you with the critical paths.
Great.
So when several different threads of activity are happening at once, you can see points where they all come together and meet. So yeah, PERT charts are very useful, and certainly Gantt charts are as well to organize projects and create timelines. Yes.
Tell me, with your middle school students, do you think that these tools are developmentally appropriate, or do you think they're beyond their usage?
No, I think they're developmentally appropriate. You just have to keep it within a certain scope.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen PERT charts and Gantt charts that look like a spider web almost, and so you can't overcomplicate it. But yeah, I see it as a very useful tool, and I think it opens up the students' eyes, because students typically aren't very good with planning. They just want to just go add something, not realizing what needs to be thought out in advance.
Excellent. Great. And I'm thinking about with middle school kids, and if you're developing these skills to use those planning tools, how it's going to impact their being able to do more complex projects as they get older.
That's absolutely true, and that's where some of these project management skills become very important. As the complexity increases, you have to have it organized, and especially when you have multiple teams, working in parallel. Yeah, it's certainly very useful.
Great. So in the presentation planner, I just use this as a basic guideline, because again, it's a student document, but it helps to be able to frame this part of the design cycle. So one of the things that was developed in that first phase was the project charter, which is that flow. It's the document they will use all the way through the project, but it still goes back to what are the scenarios, who are the persona, what are the skills that the students are getting out of this, and the standards, along with being able to look at the demographics and how the project is actually meeting the needs of underserved in the community. So in this phase, the kids are going to be really, again, looking at this and really honing it in with the specifications for it. So they are also developing personas and scenarios so that there's some anonymity to the clientele or the stakeholders that just by using their name there wouldn't be. So they are developing those personas and the scenarios, and also developing specification document. So they're breaking their project down into what is happening, what pieces they're going to have to design to be able to pull together to make the project. So they really do start pulling in the specifications, and they're updating their PERT and Gantt chart and looking at prior art, and then also making sure they have all that together so that they will be able to move into the conceptual design phase. So that's how they're working on that. Again, I said we talked about the project charter again, and that's in, I think it's 112, yeah, 112. But again, it's a living document, so they will be changing it and moving it along as they go into that, plus the scenarios. And again, if these documents are cumbersome, you don't have to use it. But another thing that I was thinking about is that as you're developing your lessons and you're moving along with your project, it doesn't mean that, like, there is a lesson on the project charter. it doesn't mean that you have to stop what the kids are doing and teach everyone about this. You can have one person be the person that's working on the project charter and talk with all of those kids in one group. So doing these small mini workshops, you might say, to move your project along. So it's just a thought as far as project and program management that might be helpful. So
You know, I think it's very good to have a log of the requirements because as projects go along, sometimes things just change and people don't understand how these things evolve sometimes. But you know, you got to be very careful that when you spec things out, you stick to that. And if there's a reason to change it, you know, it would be the reason would be good enough to write it down and look at exactly why it is you're changing it. Otherwise, things tend to get out of control, and you know, you get one of those Swiss Army knife designs where it does everything, and you don't really need a lot of it.
right.
Yeah.
And the specification design phase, this phase is designed so that you go through building a prototype, getting information back from the stakeholder, testing it, doing some initial testing, and then creating the specifications. And I know that sounds maybe counterintuitive, but until there is an actual, some kind of visual prototype, it's hard to really get into what it has to do without getting feedback from the stakeholder. So 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3 really work with that prototype, and from that develop the list of specifications. So that's kind of the way it was designed. So 2.4 is where you get into actually designing your specifications, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. So again, going through that, here's the document for the specifications, the document for prior art, and your PERT chart. Another piece about that is that the benchmarking, the prior art, there may be a piece of a product that would be good to include into this, to recreate in this process, and that might be part of what the students want to do with their whatever they design. So that's another part of that, the specifications and their prior art. So pulling those together so that they've got a design going on. Also, this is another part of that ending or the progress. So this is like a checklist, so that the students know that they've completed this, so they're ready to move into the next design or the detailed or the conceptual design phase. So it's just a checklist that could be useful as you're getting into the teaming and the project development or project management piece of it. So of approval. And I'm going to stop for 1 second and go to another screen here. So I'm pulling back out of that for a moment. I'm going to escape this thing, I think. And I'm going to go to monitor 2. So hopefully, if you can, do you see the website?
Yeah, I've been pulling up all the PowerPoints and everything as you've been talking.
Great.
So, yeah.
So I wanted to show you a little bit about the flow of this and the design of it and why it was made to go this way. So if you, like I said, in 1, 2, and 3, again, that goes back to that prototype. And this doesn't have to be a working prototype. This can be just a craft stick type of prototype. But from when you create that, then from here, that prototype to communicate is where you take that back and give it to the stakeholder and say, okay, this is our idea. What do you think about this? And so it's another way for the kids to get more information. And then the testing of it, what they would do to test it, to determine. Now, again, it isn't a working prototype, but they can go through, well, these are the pieces of things that we will need to test once we get something working. And then you get into the specifications, which is, again, bringing it down into what has to happen and what's the best use of time and effort. So let me pull up that document. Again, these documents are docs so that the kids can use them. Let me pull it over. So I'm going to make that a little bigger so you can see it. So it has the specification or requirement and where did it originate. So it may be that if the students are doing a ball flinger or something, it originated with some toy. And what is the functionality that it wants to measure? So it may be that it's measuring, if it were a ball flinger, how far it would throw it. Or if it's a ball flinger, it may be the inside mechanisms of it, and that inside mechanisms probably could be broken down even further into smaller pieces that have to be tested. So the specifications are going to get really, really detailed. So does this make sense? Because Norm, you're an engineer, and I'm hoping.
No, I like that design specification, the specification development in conjunction with the prototype and working with the customer, the client. It makes a lot of sense because I'm used to, in the industry, you'll have a marketing group that works with customers, and then you'll also have a system engineering group that works with the marketing group, and then they in turn work with engineering. So they do all that in more of a top-down, trickle-down matter. I like this better, and it works out. This is more of a startup mentality. This is more like a small group setting, where you're just sitting around the table. All the stakeholders are there, making the decisions and making changes, and yeah, I like it. I like the prototype development and yeah, developing the spec in turn with that.
And what I understand from my my brother, who's an engineer, and also some from my son-in-law, who's an engineer, sometimes the marketing people will go out and promise things that have not been in any way spec'd out. And so then you're going back going, okay, well, I don't know that we can deliver that. But if the kids get into this mentality of understanding that they're talking with the stakeholder from the get-go about what they want, how, if it is feasible and possible to do it, then they're able to also, especially with children, and because they still are children, they're having to figure out, okay, if I'm having to, or if we're doing something with, say, PVC pipe, or we're doing something with plumbing, or we're doing something with computer apps, maybe finding a parent or a community partner or a community expert who will be able to help. So this is another part of that will be able to, the kids will be able to use this information and help to develop that, so they've got a good understanding of how to move forward on the project. So yeah, so they've got.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, the marketing people are more interested in the sale than the challenges and problems with the implementation.
Sure.
So that things will go back and forth between, marketing and engineering, when you look at the time and the cost, and yeah, this is a nice model. I don't know if it would work for a big company setting, But certainly if you were a small startup
Yeah.
and, you were looking at your first product launch and you were looking at some key customers and what they wanted, this is a great way to do it.
Yeah. Well, and also if you, and again, hopefully you see my computer screen with the website on it. If you look at these three things right here, the specification, the persona and scenarios, and the prior art, it is quite possible that with your kids, you could in each team have them divide out and one person be the head on working on the specifications, another person be the lead on determining the persona or developing the persona, another person to be the lead on developing the scenario, and the fourth person being the lead on developing the exploration of the prior art, so that it doesn't become overwhelming and time, your time is very precious. It's the most precious thing you have. So to make sure that things can run in tandem so that the project can be completed and the information gathered together in a more concise way.
Yeah, I think it's important, like you said, is they look at prior art, because sometimes you get tunnel vision.
Mm-hmm.
When you come out with an idea for a product, there's usually something out there that's similar to that,
Yes.
if not the same thing. And so you want to look at that and you want to figure out, well, how is this different?
Yes.
How do we differentiate what we're doing? Why can't we use what's available?
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the kind of questions you need to be at. And then, of course, you might just say, well, we weren't planning on doing this part of it, but we see how it's done here. That would work nicely.
Right.
You might incorporate some of those ideas. So, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And, it's interesting how when kids, they don't always see that that you can use parts of something else and improve it. I don't think that they always see that. I was thinking about, again, our Nazareth kids and how they really got into changing it and coming up with a better idea by looking at a Pez dispenser, looking at a chalk dispenser, and how those were a big piece of their design, and how they got the the dispenser created. So that's kind of cool the way that worked. So all those things kind of move in tandem. So
Yes, that's a good idea, how they looked at different products that weren't exactly what they needed, but they got some very good ideas from it.
yeah.
And that's how it works in the real world. I mean, all these companies look at their competitors and like products, and anything that they can get out of that they think is useful, worthwhile, has value, they'll take it, So, yeah.
But, also that's another hard thing for kids to talk about, is that you can use other people's ideas. It doesn't mean that actually there's never anything that is brand new under the sun. You can't obviously call it your own, but you're definitely not going to take it and you're not taking it verbatim or you're just taking an idea or a concept. And so a lot of times they think it's stealing, but it's really not. You're using an idea and redesigning it and making it into something different. But they sometimes have problems thinking about that.
Yeah, Xerox came out with the first icon-based software, and Apple used it for their first Mac computer, and then Windows came along, and they mimicked it and used it as well. So if you have a good idea, get used to it. Everyone's going to want to go ahead and piggyback on it.
Yeah, exactly. So any question about the flow of how the specification phase would go?
No, I think it makes sense. The only thing I had a question is, I can see the gate, that 2.7,
Yeah.
that's the final gate. That's when you're out of that's your exit criteria. Is that right?
Yes. And what happens in gate 2 is where the kids would actually present what they have gotten up to that point. So they
Oh,
will be presenting to you or presenting in class what they have found, what the specifications are, and what they
right.
think they're going to do to move on to the next piece. So
Yeah,
they,
that makes sense. Yeah, that's really. You have a lot of good documentation on this site.
great. Very good.
Yeah.
Glad to hear that. A couple things about the gates. The gates are ways for you to do assessments also. So the assessments are built into this. So they are formative. And let me, hang on, I got the wrong thing up here. So hopefully, I'm going to move my screen again. So hopefully you see where it says EPICS, what is assessment?
Yes.
Great, very good. So one of the things that when I'm working on my PhD and finishing up the last parts of it, which is the research, is about assessment and how formative assessment is an important piece of education, and how we sometimes gloss over making sure that the kids are able to use this in a way so that they learn. So this is just a little kind of overview of that. And this is with a project base, and I want to, there's such a thing, I believe in problem-based rather than project-based, because project-based could be just designing a wallet out of duct tape, which is not necessarily serving anyone. And so, but problem-based is where they take something that is a real need and then creating something that will help people. So it's a balancing act for problem and project based between the needs of the team, individual, and the skills that they get out of it. And the skills that they get out of it are those unmeasurable. They're just kind of those value added pieces. And that's the neat part about it, where the kids are active. They're having to write with notebooks, keeping documentation, which is a huge skill for them to be successful in high school, college, and in life. And then finding something that they can actually deliver, and the project documents. So that's a big piece of that. Measuring the design process is a part of the assessment, where you're not only measuring, and the students are not only keeping track of how they're moving along, but also how the team is moving and how the project is moving. So there are different pieces of that assessment that are being compiled throughout the process. So in the individual artifacts, they have the rubrics when they're writing, their self-evaluation, which is part of the reflective process, which is in their notebooks and their student sheets. And they also have peer evaluations that go along with this in their the documentation for their gates. So the peers actually will help to evaluate. And that's an important part of students being able to understand their own success or their own understandings, but also to be able to give good feedback to someone else. And then the project artifacts, they have their design documents, which are compiled in all of the parts of their project, and they have their prototypes, and then they have their the gates, which are like design reviews, right, but not quite to the end of it. And then also getting that feedback from their community partners, which may not be in any way tangible, or it's tangible, but it's not going to be it's going to be spoken, it's going to be verbal rather than written. So those things happen. So these are the forms that kind of go along with this. Let me see if I can get to that. There are checklists, there are rubrics, observations, student reflections, project evaluation, individual evaluation, and peer reviews, and individuals where they're reflecting on their presentations. And these are just, they're all formative. Now the rubrics that kind of go along with this, you can edit these. So if it's something that, and this is a wrong one, I shouldn't have put the Ethics High, but the rubrics are very similar between Ethics High and the Ethics Middle School. But because, I mean, reflection is reflection, and the rubrics are very similar, opening statements, supporting that with evidence, their sentence structure, which obviously has to be brought into consideration. So all those rubrics are very similar. And then there's also, at the end of each lesson, an exit slip. Have you ever used exit slips, Norm?
A little bit, yeah. That's all part of the Marzano philosophy there, where you have a ticket out the door, they call it.
Yep. So what I like about it is because it just instantly gives you some understanding and some feedback about if they're getting it or they're not getting it. And also it allows the students to realize that if they are having problems, they can say it and talk to you and get some information back that will help them. So these are all built into it. And also for each gate, there's a self-reflection. And I really do like students to be able to reflect on all of this. If you go back to Sadler, Sadler's one of the big guys in formative assessments, and he said that what we're trying to do, might have been Bandura, this says what we're trying to do is create in students, make them as give them the skills so that they can evaluate themselves as well as the teacher. Because if they can evaluate themselves, then they can become lifelong learners. They don't have to rely on someone else to always tell them how they're doing. They can reflect themselves. So this is just another way for them to build those skills. So again, going back, what do you think is what is the strongest aspect of their presentation? What when they presented in that gate, what was the best that they did? What was the important piece of it? And what did you think was good? And what was the weakest aspect of their presentation? And what was the reasoning for it? And how did they improve? And a suggestion, and the kids, the peers are critiquing, so one suggestion from the critique that you would implement to improve. So they're getting feedback from their students, from their peers to improve. And also then, what did they learn about creating and presenting that information? So it's really developing those communication skills. So
did you mention Stiggins? Is that who you mentioned?
At Sadler.
Sadler. Okay.
Yeah. And also a lot of work by Black and Willem out of Britain. They've done a really nice job with a lot of interesting things with reflection and formative assessments.
Yeah, I'm taking a curriculum design and assessment course with Nova Southeastern now, and we're using Wiggins and McTeague.
Okay, yeah, McTighe, yeah.
Understanding by design, and
Yes.
then also assessment as learning with Lorna Earl.
If you get a chance, look at, there is an article by Ian Clark, was written in 2012 on assessment and metacognition. It's excellent. He's got a diagram on that thing that is just pulls.
Ian Clark, okay.
Ian Clark, it's excellent. I'll make myself a note and I'll send you the paper, because it just really spoke to me and pulled everything kind of together about how the different layers and levels. And he looks at formative assessment and metacognition kind of as a sphere, and what's the internal pieces of it, and then externally how it kind of all flows together, but the heart of it, what the heart of it is. So it's really kind of neat. So are you still there? I had a slow connection.
Yeah, Wiggins. Yeah. No, that's okay. Wiggins and McTeague, they have what they call a framing performance test using GRASP,
Uh-huh.
and then goal, role, audience, situation, performance, and standards.
Yeah.
So, and that's very similar, like to some of the others that you're talking about, but it all comes back to assessment as a learning tool, and certainly,
Right.
student self-assessment and reflection are key, especially as you pointed out, if they're going to be lifelong learners. Those are the things they need to look back and figure out for themselves sometimes what they did good and what they needed to improve on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So also, oh, I said the rubric of the gate, which I don't know if that is, it just kind of, this rubric, this is what the teacher would kind of look at and be able to give back to the team as far as how their presentation went. So it has the content, the technical requirements, language arts and those components, their personal reflection, and their oral presentation. So again, this can be adapted. So however, if you want to add different pieces to this, it's perfectly fine. But
Yeah, I use Ruby Star a lot of times, and it's in
so
the
you
same.
recognize it. Yeah, this is Rubistar. Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, I see that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that it's real easy, especially you just download it in Excel and you can make the more. What's Flip Snack? I'm not. I don't know if I
Flip,
heard that.
yeah. Flip Snack is a way for students to take their documents and take the Word documents, put them into a PDF. Then they can take the PDF and put it into, it turns it into an online book.
Oh.
They can put it on there so that it's free, and it's a
Oh.
free thing. So it's a way for them to keep all of their documents kind of together, but also to be able to show their progression with their project, but also not only in the progression, but also the artifacts and their reasoning behind why they've made the decisions that they've made on their projects. So if you go into, let me see if I can pull that really quickly. Again, I'm going to change screens here.
Yeah, no problem.
And I'm going to pull this over here. If you go into your forum home, which is where all the lessons are, that's your resource library. If you scroll down into the second kind of category, down at the bottom is this teacher toolbox. If you click there, there is a document for Flip Snacks 1.9. So if you click on this, and this is something that you could print out for your kids, and hopefully you're seeing this this document come up here in a second. But again, when I do these, when I've done it for my kids when I was teaching and also working with teachers, as I did it, whatever, with any program that I did, I would write it down as I created the document. So it's, they could sign into FlipSnack, create an account, and then it's flipsnackedu.com, and there's some guides, and then it's just how you upload your documents, how you save them, how to make your FlipSnack, and then it kind of walks through the process of how to customize it. And as you can see, this is kind of what it looks like, and then you can zoom in and you can zoom out, but it also can be a link. So if your kids are creating a website as documentation for their project, they can put this document with their artifacts on the web page, and it's an instant artifact.
That's nice. That's a nice tool.
It really is, and I always try to find tools that are free, because most teachers don't, schools don't have a lot of money, and teachers don't have a lot of money, so you just don't.
Yeah. Oh,
So
I see it. I got it. yeah, the flip snack presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great. Well, cool.
yeah, that is a nice tool. I haven't heard of it before, but I can see how useful it would be.
Well, I actually started off when I was a science coach, and the art teacher in one of the elementary schools, the kids that had created, they were working with worms, and they created books about their worms, and they created them
Oh,
in flip snacks. So that's how I got started knowing about it, because I just thought it was really cool that these little kids were able to do these really interesting documents with the flip snacks. So anyway, again, the flip snacks and a technical requirement. The other thing is that once they create the PDFs from each of the gates, then they can take it and pull it all together at the end of their project as a documentation for their entire project. So it's kind of helping the kids to organize their thoughts as they move through this, so there isn't this huge push at the end to try to get it done. If they keep moving things along little piece at a time, then they're ready for their final design review and the final presentation and delivery of their project. So
yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, I understand. Yes, I like it. Yeah.
So also, there's also a summative evaluation at the end where they are evaluating what they were supposed to do, who was on the team had the responsibility of each thing, and how it was done, how well it
Right.
was done. Then on the second page of this, they defend their grades, what they think they should get as far as a grade, how well they did. And so again, it puts credibility on themselves. It also validates their experience. And then there's this discussion that goes along with it with the teacher. Could be the stakeholder, could be a principal even, that helps to evaluate this. So it could be someone completely outside. And then there's also the individual evaluation. It'll again, this is editable. So if you want to take this stuff out and change it, that's possible. That's
Right.
yeah. It is.
I probably wouldn't. I really probably wouldn't because it's very comprehensive. And I was just thinking what kind of conversations these middle school kids will have on how they evaluate themselves. That should be interesting.
But it's also even the college kids that I work with have a hard time evaluating each other because they're always afraid of giving critical feedback. And I'm not being critical as far as attacking, but real authentic information back to the person that would really help them to design or to be a better designer, be a better engineer. And so without practice, though, they can't learn those skills. So these evaluations are, I think, really essential for kids to be able to become better evaluators of their own work.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I could see and look back on my own experiences with in engineering design reviews, and if you do things the right way, people really understand that you're trying to help them.
Yeah.
And like you say, you can't make it personal, and you have to look at the product and what's being done and not the person. But you really rely on that in the real world. I mean, if you come out of a design review and say, geez, they really beat the living heck out of that design there, whatever, that was a terrific design review.
Yeah.
And, if you go into one where everyone just kind of looks and, oh, yeah, that looks good, whatever, you're just wasting your time,
Yeah, you hit it. That's exactly it.
Yeah, those are great skills to have, and certainly having those before you get into the business environment or have some experience with it,
Mm-hmm.
that's very, very useful.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, I think that it's so essential if we can give these kids these skills early when they're, in their early teens, that early adolescent type of thing, how essential that can be and how they can develop into a more advanced or complex evaluation system, and the thinking that they can go along with it is huge. So, I think that starting at middle school is wonderful. Another one is this peer evaluation. This was taken from Xavier College Prep, and went through and evaluating each other on collaboration, their quality of work, use of resources, controlling their own learning, working with others, and time management. So they're evaluating each other on how well they worked as a team, which, you can use it if you don't, but I think it's an important skill that they learn how to evaluate each other. And then the checklists. So again, this is a notebook checklist, and again, this is editable. So if it's something that you want to use as far as your notebooks, I don't know how you use it or how you use a notebook, or if you do, this helps the kids to be able to organize their thoughts. And I know a lot of kids, well, nobody likes to write things down. I mean, I get it, but
No, right.
it is so important to be able to remember what happened, to remember and to document a project so that you can come up with the best solution possible. So it's just another tool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, kids hate to write things down, and to get them to do a notebook where you're not actually like dictating notes to them, that on their own, they've got to go ahead and write down important artifacts and ideas and sketch things out. They're not very good at that. So that's something definitely that they need to work on.
Well, and if they know that this checklist is a part of it, they're probably more likely to, it may not have a lot of weight, but if they know that it is going to be checked, there's more likelihood they might do it.
Yeah, exactly. If they know that someone's going to evaluate that, yeah, that's true.
And that's about it. So do you have any questions at this point?
Formative assessment. Assessment is for self-regulated learning. I got this with Ian Clark.
Yes.
I got it on Google Scholar.
Oh, did you get it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's from Springer. It's this is a review, I think. I have another one that says formative assessment. There's nothing so practical as a good theory. That's 2010.
The 2012.
He comes up quite a bit, I see.
If you look in the middle of the, well, no, I think it's on the 4th page. There is a dot or a graph there, or a visual that is right on. Did you download it?
Oh yeah, I see it right here. It's a big circular wheel.
Yes.
And it goes smaller and smaller and smaller circles. Is that what you're talking about? The theory of formative assessment in cross-section.
Yeah. It's a very interesting interesting graphic, and I've never seen anything like it before. It's pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, this is yeah, it is a very, very good article. I'm just looking at it right here. So thank you very much for that. And I'm gonna sure to print this out and go through and read it. But I do, anytime they can give me a good diagram, that really helps me understand things.
Yeah.
When I can visualize it and see how things piece together,
Me too. That's it. That's it.
No, that's true. No, I love this design specification phase, and it makes a lot of sense. I'm working with the prototypes and having the gate and all the different mechanisms for evaluation and reflection. I really like the EPICS, the methods. It really incorporates all of the learning aspects of engineering. It makes engineering more of a science of learning. Where not realizing that these things when I was in engineering, yeah, very, very useful, and I think the kids have an awful lot to learn from this. This is terrific.
Great. Excellent. Well, if you have any other questions, sounds like you've got a good handle on it, and sounds like, you know, all of your learning that you're doing with Stiggins and all that is kind of playing into all this. So,
Oh, it is. It is, because that's my, I'm going for my doctorate in STEM education,
nice.
and yeah, this fits exactly in with it. So I'm very interested in it anyways, and I can see how well we could use it with our Sea Perch project, and get the kids, get it more organized, and yeah, I'm just things are going through my head now. I'm trying to figure out, well, who's going to do what and how we're going to set up different roles and everything. But this is good. Yeah.
I was thinking about this. I was just talking with Janet Mambrino, who is one of our teachers out in Arizona, and she does a lot of stuff with Arizona State University, and they have a new EPICS coordinator out there, Shane, Charisse, if you can help me, Shane, can't remember his last name, but they're both going after and starting the PhD in STEM at Arizona State. So I was thinking I probably need to get you, all three of you guys together, since I don't know how far you are along in this process, but it'd be interesting for you to talk with how their STEM program compared to wherever you're getting your STEM program or your STEM doctorate.
Oh yeah, yeah, I'd be very interested in that, because it's really relatively new, and actually the program that I'm in, I started out in higher education, even though that was not my intent, and then when they came along with the STEM program, for elementary and middle school kids, I jumped on it immediately because of my engineering background, what I really wanted to do anyway. So yeah, I'd be very interested. Yeah, if you could pass on some of their contact information, I'd be interested for sure.
I will do that. So I will write myself a note to give you a little introduction.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Great. All right. So next week we'll get into the design phase, the conceptual design and detailed design, and we'll also look at teaming next week. And so
that sounds terrific. Miss Azua spoke to me, and she wanted to know, is her attendance necessary or not?
it just she's really supportive, which is what we need and what you need. And
yes.
As long as you have administrative support, yay rah. And then no, I don't think so. But,
oh, okay.
But we do appreciate that she is supporting you, and as she needs to know things, I know you'll let her know. And if she has any questions for us, we can definitely get in touch with her.
Oh, definitely. Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's just at this point she's doing some adjunct work at Nova, teaching some biology courses.
Okay.
And she's flat out, and if she didn't have to do it, then she trusts me, and I will certainly keep her up to date on what I'm doing.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Okay, well, thank you, Norm.
Thank you.
All right, you take it easy.
I will. I'll see you next week.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you.